What's going on, everyone? It's the Icebreaker here, back with some more hockey content. So for today's video, we're going to dive into some bold predictions for next year in the 2022-2023 NHL season. So we're in the middle of the offseason now in the NHL world, and most of the guys have already been re-signed, and some other guys have switched teams during the offseason as expected in this free agency period. I know there's some other guys who haven't been re-signed yet, like Nazem Kadri and John Klingberg, but I really don't think it's going to alter too much what I feel as to be bold predictions for next year. So with that, I've kind of decided to tackle a little bit of an interesting topic here. So I've decided to iron out 10 bold predictions that I think could possibly happen for next season. So with these bold predictions, I'm going to try to go a little bit off the board, be a little bit more creative, but at the same time, I try to make them somewhat realistic, or as realistic as possible, because I could very well see all these predictions coming into fruition. But anyway, let's get right into it. 10 bold predictions for the NHL 2022-2023 season. So bold prediction number one, let's just get the boring one out of the way. The Colorado Avalanche will not win back-to-back Stanley Cups. Maybe this isn't the boldest of takes, but at the same time, you look at this Colorado Avalanche team, the guys that are ironed out here, Nathan MacKinnon, Gabriel Landeskog, Cale Makar, Mikko Rantanen, unquestionably, probably on paper at least, the most talented team in the NHL. And obviously, they proved it legitimately on the ice that they're the most talented team by claiming that Stanley Cup this past season. And because of the parity in the NHL, this might not be considered a bold take, like I said earlier, but with the talent of this roster, I think a lot of people might already have them pegged to win another Stanley Cup yet again, which is why in saying that, I think this could potentially be considered a bold prediction. So yeah, I'm just going to go on a limb and say they don't do it. I think there's a lot of other great teams that could definitely challenge them and be a Stanley Cup champion, even though they have a very talented roster. The main reason why I'm making this prediction is I'm not fully sold on the goaltending. Darcy Kemper, obviously taking his talents to the Washington Capitals, definitely hurts. But they did bring in Alexander Georgiev to replace him, but I'm not fully sold that he is a starting caliber goaltender quite yet. But him and Pavel Francouz as a tandem is probably not bad. And maybe, Georgiev playing in a situation like Colorado, who's already lethal offensively and a much better defensive team compared to New York Rangers, might benefit him. But overall, I still think there is some concerns in that front, and that's a big reason why Colorado could end up just not winning another Stanley Cup. And also, I like parity in the league. I like to see new teams win the Cup every season, so not really a hard bold prediction for me. I hope this doesn't happen because, again, I like other teams to win, but obviously they can prove me wrong because they're that talented. But yeah. Bold prediction number one, the Avs are not going back-to-back. All right, bold prediction number two, getting a little bit spicier. I got Ilya Sorokin winning the Vezina Trophy, and the New York Islanders are going to have a bounce-back season and return to the Stanley Cup playoffs. So first, in regards to Ilya Sorokin, I just think he's that great of a goaltender. I mean, if I had to make a list, I think I would put him in my top 5 goaltenders in the NHL right now. I mean, just looking at what he did this past season, the New York Islanders finished with 84 points. They missed the playoffs by 16 points. And he still put up a .925 save percentage and had a winning record. He had an unbelievable season, and I think the Islanders, who are poised to bounce back with the lineup that they have, I think he'll be a key piece, a main reason why the Islanders will be much better next season. And I could really see him pushing for that Vezina Trophy if he can even elevate his game even more. If he can have a save percentage well above .930, kind of like Igor Shesterkin last season, I think he could be a prime candidate for the Vezina Trophy, maybe an early favorite by most. I mean, I'm going to pick him to win the Vezina, but low-key a favorite to win it, I think. For the Islanders, I just feel like there's more offensive potential for them. Now that Barry Trotz is gone, maybe they won't be playing that, trap defensive style of hockey. Now, they could still maintain a solid defensive team, but I kind of think that the doors might open a little bit more with this new head coach. They can fly a little freely in the offensive zone. A guy like Matt Barzal could potentially pop off and dominate in this new situation, because it seemed like him and Barry Trotz wasn't working out. I think he was a big reason why they ultimately parted ways with Barry Trotz. And obviously the Metropolitan Division is very deep, but the Islanders are one of those sneaky good teams still. So I'm just basing off the fact that the Islanders have more offensive potential and the fact that Ilya Sorokin, in my opinion, is a top 5 goalie. And if he could, elevate his play to being a Vezina caliber goaltender, even though he kind of was last year already, but if he can get himself to another level, I think the Islanders are in a prime position to bounce back. And that's why I think not only could they make the playoffs, I think they could definitely challenge for a top 3 spot in that Metro Division. All right, bold take number 3, the Philadelphia Flyers, man. I don't know what the hell they're doing, Even though they have John Tortorella, I'm predicting them to have the worst record in the Eastern Conference. Now, honestly, I think a lot of people are sort of clowning on this organization right now. They're not exactly sure where the direction is of this team. So maybe this is not considered a massively bold take, but there are a couple of pretty bad teams in the East. So for the Philadelphia Flyers to be the absolute worst, maybe a little bit more of a bolder opinion there. And look, I think John Tortorella could still be a good head coach in this league, but I just look at the talent overall in this roster, and I'm just not convinced they're a playoff team. Definitely not convinced they're a playoff team. But I don't know. I'm not really a fan right now of what's going on overall. The defense still could use some work. I think, Ryan Ellis, if he's healthy, he's definitely going to help. I think Travis Sanheim's a very solid defenseman. But outside of that, not really a fan of Rasmus Ristolainen. The Tony DeAngelo signing is kind of weird, in my opinion, for lack of a better term. Now, maybe Tortorella can implement more of a defensive system to structure around Carter Hart, who I definitely still think has potential, but, up to this point hasn't really shown it. And then the offense, I just don't see a lot of elite offensive players. I think Sean Couturier is a good player. I think Travis Konechny's a solid player. Cam Atkinson's a good player as well. But I really don't see an elite, point per game type of producer on that team. So the offense is not exactly where I would like it to be in terms of stacking up against the rest of the league. I just don't think it's quite on par. Yeah, overall, I'm just not a fan of the roster, and I think they could be, a little bit better. Maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh on the Flyers. I think maybe Tortorella could potentially make them a much more competitive team and not be in the basement of the Eastern Conference. But would I go as far to say that they're one of the top 8 best teams in the Eastern Conference? I think I would bet against that personally. All right, bold prediction number 4, getting very interesting. Talking about 2 young teams here. One of the Detroit Red Wings or Ottawa Senators will finish top 3 in the Atlantic Division. Now, this is bold because there are a lot of really good teams in the Atlantic Division. I mentioned a couple here. The Toronto Maple Leafs, I still think, are a good team. The Florida Panthers obviously are a contender. And then, of course, the Tampa Bay Lightning, who just went to 3 straight Stanley Cup finals and won 2 of the last 3 Stanley Cups. And even the Boston Bruins, who even though have an aging core, are still kind of in the mix, I would say. But looking at these 2 teams right here, the Detroit Red Wings and the Ottawa Senators, probably the 2 biggest winners of the offseason. Firstly, looking at Detroit, they made a ton of moves to bolster their lineup, adding to their top 6. David Perron coming in, Andrew Kopp coming in. They also shored up their blue line a bit, adding Ben Schrott and Oli Mata. Of course, for the Ottawa Senators, who already have Jake Sanderson in their lineup, probably next season, going to improve that blue line. And then you have a tandem of Anton Forsberg and Callum Talbot coming in. And then, of course, up front, you got a perennial 40-goal scorer in Alex DeBrincat and signing Claude Giroux. These 2 teams obviously have bright futures. And some people might be on the side that I'm being a little bit, too bold with this one. I think some people might say either of these teams could be a wild card team, but to make them a top 3 team in the Atlantic might be a little bit premature. Maybe the hype on both of these rosters a little bit premature by most people. But for me, I just look at 2 young cores that are only getting better, and I truly believe that either of these teams are ready to take that next step. So I could go bold and pick one of them, but I can't really decide right now between these 2 who I would pick as the clear-cut better team. But I definitely think one of these teams at the very least is ready to make some noise in that Atlantic Division and be a tough out in the playoffs. And one of them, maybe both of them, make the playoffs, but yeah, one of these teams being top 3 in the Atlantic could very well see happening next season. Prediction number 5, turning to basically the negative side of these bold predictions. The Boston Bruins, Washington Capitals, and Pittsburgh Penguins all miss the playoffs next season. Now, this is a bit of a crazy bold take because these 3 teams have arguably been the 3 most consistent hockey clubs in the last 15 years. And obviously, all 3 of these teams still have very solid rosters. So saying that all 3 of these teams, one team maybe, not so bold of a take to say to miss the playoffs, but all 3 of them, I think, for example, the Boston Bruins might be a consensus pick to miss the playoffs just because of the key injuries they had to start the season. And people look at that team as being a lot older, and, with the turmoil in the Atlantic Division where, things are starting to turn over and younger teams are getting better and probably going to be higher in the standings, picking Boston maybe isn't that bold of a take, but then you add in Pittsburgh and Washington, 2 veteran teams with still, franchise caliber talents. Yeah, it's a lot here, this one. I get it. Honestly, when it comes to the Metropolitan Division, I see somewhat of turnover as well because, obviously the Hurricanes and the Rangers, I feel like are the 2 best teams in that division. I look at New Jersey, who's getting a lot better, and I could see maybe taken an extra jump, kind of like Ottawa and Detroit in a way. And then, of course, New York Islanders, like I said before, I think they're poised to have a bounce-back season. And even the Columbus Blue Jackets, who added Johnny Gaudreau, I'm not going to get into that signing. Honestly, I think it's a weird signing, but personal reasons. Anyway, they're probably still going to be in the mix as well. You know, overall, it's just based on the fact that I think the Eastern Conference is as tough as it's ever been. I think last year was very lopsided. I do not expect that to be the case whatsoever this season. I just think there's going to be a lot of turnover in the Eastern Conference, and some veteran teams like Boston, Washington, and Pittsburgh could be on the outside looking in come April. Who knows? Bold take number 6, the Winnipeg Jets are going to break up their core and start a full-on rebuild once they miss the playoffs this upcoming season. Now, I'm a little bit weird on the Winnipeg Jets because I still feel like overall they have a very talented roster on paper, and I could very well see this team bouncing back in the Central Division next season, but I don't know. I'm not really a fan of their team right now overall. I do like their forwards, and Connor Hellebuyck's still a very good goaltender. I just think defensively, this is like an atrocious team. I'm not sold on them whatsoever. I don't know. There's rumblings that this is a toxic locker room, and there's certain guys who don't even want to be there anymore, like Pierre-Luc Dubois, for example, who reportedly probably wants to be in Montreal over the next 2 years after he becomes a free agent. It's not to say that I don't like this team. I'm just getting very unsettling vibes when it comes to this franchise at the moment. I mean, this Jets team has been together for quite a while, and ultimately they just haven't been able to get it done, apart from one nice run when they went to the Western Conference Finals. It's just been kind of a disappointing team for the most part of the last 5-6 years, right? And the guys that have flashed on the screen, I'm not saying that they're going to trade all of them. Like, I could see them moving Blake Wheeler, who's a veteran in this league and probably past his prime at this point. Mark Scheifele's been in some trade rumors. I can see them parting ways with him, but maybe they keep guys like Connor Hellebuyck and, Kyle Connor, Nikolai Ehlers. Those are some younger guys. Connor Hellebuyck's still a franchise goalie. Try to build more around them and see what happens. But yeah, this core it hasn't quite panned out to the way we would have expected them to, honestly. The Winnipeg Jets fans deserve a lot better than what they've been getting. I still think they have solid pieces, like I said, and maybe they could turn the corner, but personally, I just think it's time that they kind of rebuild a little bit, kind of have a fresh, clean slate on this team, because things just haven't quite worked out at all. Bold prediction number 7, we're coming in with an absolute heater. The Toronto Maple Leafs will win the President's Trophy, and for a team that hasn't won a playoff series in nearly 20 years, I got them making the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, it's no secret that the playoffs have not been a very exciting time for Toronto Maple Leafs and the Toronto Maple Leafs fan base. But I do think in terms of the regular season, the Leafs are always among the best teams in the NHL. And having them go for a President's Trophy, as bold as it could be, competing with the likes of the Florida Panthers and the Colorado Avalanche and Carolina Hurricanes and teams like that, I think the Leafs have a talented enough roster to actually be the best team in the NHL by the end of the regular season. And yes, where the Maple Leafs go, they go as far as those big four take them, right? Austin Matthews, John Tavares, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, and also I can't forget Morgan Riley, who's still a premier defenseman in the NHL. I still think overall they have a good enough team. I like their defense, and even with the acquisition of Matt Murray, people are kind of sort of unsettled with that, parting ways with Jack Campbell just to get Matt Murray, who some may claim he's well past his prime, but honestly, I don't mind the tandem of him and Ilya Samsonov, especially since, Samsonov on a 1-year deal, Matt Murray only 2 years left on his deal. Kind of a low-risk, high-reward scenario. I don't mind the goaltending at all. Both of them being under 30, I still think Samsonov does have the potential to be a decent goalie in the league. And then Matt Murray, people think he's past his prime, still a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. That's very important to have that, that leadership, guys who've been there before. And even last season, he wasn't really that bad, like 906 save percentage on a terrible Ottawa defensive team. And he had some injury issues. Considering the defense he had in Ottawa, to have a positive goal saved above expected, I think is actually something to pay attention to. So from judging this team on paper from that side of things, I think they have the potential to be a President's Trophy caliber team. I mean, they were last season with terrible goaltending. We're the 4th best team in the league. And if they get slightly better goaltending, which I actually expect they will, they could be the best team in the league in the regular season. Also, I'm looking at this through a mental perspective because the Leafs haven't gotten out of the first round, right? They haven't been able to win a playoff series. I think if they keep their foot on the gas the entire regular season, get that President's Trophy, it gives them the best opportunity to actually advance in the Stanley Cup, because they'll only be taking on like an 8th seed or second wild card in the Eastern Conference. That is a major advantage for them because people are complaining about last year how they faced the Tampa Bay Lightning and they got unlucky with the matchup, whatever. I think they're capable of beating, those lower teams in the Eastern Conference that just barely squeak into the playoffs. And I think the Leafs are a good enough team to go on a deep playoff run to the Eastern Conference Finals. We'll see what happens. Obviously, it is a bold take since the Leafs haven't done anything in the playoffs, but let's see what happens. I'm definitely keeping my eye on them, that's for sure. Bold prediction number 8, on the flip side of things, the Tampa Bay Lightning will only make the playoffs as a wild card team and will be a first-round exit. I think some people maybe saw this coming with the Detroit-Ottawa slide where I had both of them, or one of them being in the top 3 in the Atlantic Division. Naturally, people were like, where the hell did you put the Tampa Bay Lightning? So I got Tampa making a wild card slot in the Eastern Conference. Not because I think they got substantially weaker, but I do think that, some of those younger teams are probably going to be a lot more dominant. But also Tampa Bay does have some issues. They've lost some depth. They traded away Ryan McDonough. Andre Palat decided to sign with the New Jersey Devils. I do think fatigue might start to set in. They've been to 3 straight Stanley Cup finals. Basically, the last 3 playoffs have played almost an entire additional regular season compared to the rest of the NHL. I think that fatigue could be a factor as well. Some injuries. I mean, they had a lot of guys that were playing hurt during the playoffs. Might wear them a little bit during the regular season if those guys are not 100%, or even if they miss time. That could maybe set back this Lightning team slightly. At the end of the day, I still think they're good enough to make the playoffs, but potentially maybe only as a wild card team. We'll see, though. In terms of them losing in the first round, again, the wear and tear on this team, I don't know. I'm more on the side where I think their window is sort of closing a little bit. They are a bit of a veteran team now, and the way the Eastern Conference is starting to change and younger teams that are going to be a lot more competitive in that conference. I think Tampa, their best chances are behind them. They did win their 2 cups, but I'm not fully convinced they'll ever get back there again, I'll be honest. And by losing in the first round, as a wildcard team, they're going to be facing, the best team in either the Atlantic or the Metropolitan Division, and they probably would be the underdogs, and I would expect them to lose that series. Yeah, this is quite a bold take, having a team that's been to 3 straight finals all of a sudden just lose in the first round and not be a dominant regular season team, but I can very well see it happening. Let me know what you guys think about this. All right, bold take number 9. This might be the boldest take of the video. I mean, the 10th one, I wanted to say that one for last because that was me predicting the Stanley Cup champion. But bold take number 9. So Jack Hughes, I got finishing top 5 in NHL scoring, 108 points, roughly where I think he's going to put up. He's going to win the Hart Trophy for carrying the New Jersey Devils to the Stanley Cup playoff. And this is bold because the New Jersey Devils are still considered to be kind of a rebuilding team, and they were absolute garbage last year. But entering this season, I really expect this young Devils core to take a massive step forward. And on the back of Jack Hughes, I think they are capable to sneaking into that second wildcard spot in the Eastern Conference playoffs. Now, first of all, for Jack Hughes to take this massive step might seem like a bold take, but I think he's going to prove to everyone why, once and for all, he was taken first overall not too long ago. Looking back at last season, he didn't play in many games, only played in 49 games, but he was actually pretty dominant. 26 goals, 30 assists for 56 points, which is a 94-point pace over 82. But another year of development under Jack Hughes, and I would expect him to elevate his game even more, playing with some very good players now. Jesper Bratt's going to be another year older, and he had a great season. You add Andre Palat, Nico Hischier, one of the better young two-way centers in the NHL right now. I just think the team is starting to come together a little bit, and with their young core, I think behind Jack Hughes, the New Jersey Devils are going to be very good, and he's going to be a big, big reason why. And obviously, in terms of him winning the Hart, the only reason I think he wins the Hart is because I think the Devils make the playoffs, and because of him potentially being top 5 in NHL scoring. I'm predicting this, but it might not actually happen. But anyway, because I'm predicting that to happen is a big reason why he'd probably win the Hart Trophy, because people will look at him and be like, whoa, this guy took a young and up-and-coming Devils team, carried them to the playoffs. Basically, he should be, by definition, the most valuable player in the NHL, right? So yeah, this is a super huge take, bold take to say that Jack Hughes could be top 5, get well over 100 points, but we'll see what happens. I really like what the Devils are building, and I think they're in a prime position to maybe make the playoffs over the likes of Washington Capitals and the Pittsburgh Penguins. That Metro is very tough, but if the Devils can pull this off, best look at that man, Jack Hughes, as a big reason why, like I said earlier. And finally, my 10th And last bold prediction of this video, Igor Shesterkin takes home the Conn Smythe Trophy and the New York Rangers win the 2023 Stanley Cup. I mean, talk about maybe their shortest rebuild in NHL history. Like, they were not so good for like 2 years. Got a couple of really high draft picks who haven't even reached their ceilings yet. But yet this team finds themselves back in Stanley Cup contentions in like a 2-3 year span maybe. Just think another year of development under this core that's quickly becoming an elite team in the NHL. I think they're in prime position to actually win the Stanley Cup behind Igor Shesterkin, who is a top 2 goaltender in the NHL unquestionably. Reigning Vezina winner, could have a similar season. I do think the blue line is starting to come together a little bit. Maybe it's, not where you would like it to be at this point, but you have guys like Adam Fox and Jacob Trouba and Keandre Miller. I think this is a very, very exciting blue line that they're building, and I think it's going to be a lot better next season. And of course, you look up front with the elite talent they have. Artemi Panarin, Mika Zibanejad was fabulous in the playoffs this past season. He's a legit #1 center, and people who question that need to stop sleeping on this man for sure. In a nutshell, the New York Rangers are basically elite at every position, and that's a big reason why the Rangers are in prime position to win that Stanley Cup. Now, to get out of the Eastern Conference is a whole battle in its own, but I think the Rangers have the capability to do it. Yeah, this is my bold prediction. The Rangers take home that Stanley Cup behind Igor Shesterkin, of course, and they'll be hoisting that Stanley Cup in June of 2023. So with that, that is going to wrap up this video of 10 bold predictions to watch out for next season. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you stumbled upon this video, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Do you agree with this list? Do you believe these are all bold predictions? If you disagree and can't see any of these things happening, please let me know. We're open to hockey discussion all the time on this channel. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll talk to you again in the next one. I'll see you guys later.